welcome all the pulling fans to another show at Down and Dirty with the Badger State Tractor Pullers. It's announcers night, so we got Kristopher Clark and Stacy Button. So welcome, guys.
Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Hey, how are you guys doing? How's it
Hey,
going
Kristopher.
So the Super Bowl just over, and we're getting ready for the Super Bowl pulling this week at Louisville, Kentucky. And without announcers at any of those events, what kind of events would you have? So kind of a good night to have all of us on board. And we'd like to wish good luck to all the 15 Badger State tractor pullers that have made the cut and are currently on the way down to Louisville. We'd like to give good luck to Esden and Robbie Lemke, Travis Wildman, Greg Elsing, Casey Fritz, the Fritz brothers going down there, Don Salama, the Super Farm, Randy Baru, John Lake, Nick Gallitz, Jason Round. Also, we'd like to wish good luck to Brent Myers, Mike Gerlach, Christopher Ashelman, Craig Ladwig, and Blaine Stam. So 15 of the Badger State tractor pullers headed down to Louisville this week. So welcome, guys.
Yeah, glad to be on.
Well, Stacy, you've probably been the longest with Badger State tractor pullers. Let the fans know a little bit about you, how long you've been around tractor pulling, and about how long you've been announcing with Badger State.
Oh, thanks a lot, John. Just because I've been around a long time, that means I'm really old, right? Yeah. You know,
just compared
we
to
talked about this a little bit. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, John, and so I started thinking about it, and I've actually put down some notes here. I started announcing, for the Tri-County Pullers back when we started pulling mini rods there back in 1982. When we started pulling our mini rods, I seen how the club works, and how it works too, John. Everybody works in the club. Club members run the sled, measure. Back then, we ran a string and a rope, or a rope and a tape measure for measuring the poles, and we did our own announcement. We had our own PA and everything. And when I first started pulling with the Tri-County Pullers, Nordy Wenham's wife, Cheryl, she was sitting on the back of a trailer, and she would call out names and distances, and that was about it. And I thought, well, hey, I could probably help her out with that. And that's how I got my start as being an announcer. I never dreamed it would come to what we're doing nowadays by any means. But people seem to like what I had to say, and I had the information, because I knew it. But as far as getting into the Badger State stuff, I got my start announcing for the Badger State Pullers. I knew of the Badger State Pullers all the time, but back in the 80s, we were busy pulling our mini rods, and I was going to the big pulls, Elkhorn and Toma, and back then Davenport, Iowa had a big pull. I mean, we had them 3 Grand National pulls on consecutive weekends in late June and 4th of July weekend, and then we also had a real good regional hook in Morris, Illinois. It sprinkled in there too, so we got a lot of our big time pulling back during that time, during the 80s. And me and my brother Perry, we would go and help Lloyd McVeigh with the Super Banana. He had that tractor with 4 Keith Black Hemis on it, the first one of its kind, and we'd help him throw weights. And Lloyd and his wife Norma, they were happy to have us, because he would pull the 5,000 pound class with 2 motors, and then we'd put 2 more motors on it, and then we'd run the 7, and then we'd throw nothing but weights for the 9 and 12,000 pound classes back in the day. So yeah, they were happy to have our help, and we even followed him out to Bowling Green, Ohio, I think in 82 or 83. It escapes me now, but helped him out there, and then him and Norma got out of pulling, sold their tractor to Dick Refshauge, and that was the end of that. And I continued to attend pulls as a fan. That's what I was. I was a fan back then, and I liked pulling my mini rods. It kind of gave me the fix that I liked. And then when I started announcing a little bit, I kind of got my start there. We got our mini rod club into the Stevenson County Fair back in the late 80s, early 90s. I'm not exactly sure when, but that was a big pull for us. Our Tri-County Pullers was like the Badger State Pullers, just starting to grow at that time a fair amount. And Pat Yeagle was running the Stevenson County Fair back then, And I had a good relationship with her through the Tri-County Pullers, getting our mini rods in there. And I asked her one year, if she needed any help announcing anything, I'd be glad to help. And so the next year she got me in there to announce the trucks on Wednesday night, because the Stevenson County Fair, back in the day, it was, I believe, the 4th largest attended county fair in the state of Illinois. And they had we pulled mini rods and ATVs on Monday nights. And Badger State came in and pulled big tractors on Tuesday nights, and Wednesday night was truck night. And so I announced the trucks on Wednesday night. And I also went over and watched the Badger State and the big tractors on Tuesday night, because I'm a fan of it. And so that was how I kind of got my start professionally announced. I still don't claim to be a professional announcer by any means, that's for sure. But then I believe, I think it was probably the next year, Greg Elsing wasn't the president yet then. This is how far back I go. Larry Wolf was still the president, and his wife, Lori, called me and wanted to know if I would announce a poll for him. And I said, sure. And it was the day before the poll. And I can't remember what poll it was, to be honest with you. I'm just not sure. And I went and I announced it. And I started learning more about the Badger State stuff. I knew of them. I didn't know the particulars about the association at that time yet. And I announced that poll. And then that year at Freeport, Pat Yeagle asked me if I'd announced the tractors in the Badger State part of the poll. And I said, oh, I'd be happy to. And so that's kind of how it started back in, I think 93 is what I got written down in my little book of notes, is when I started. And it just started slowly. I did a couple polls that first year, and then got it. Greg started running the show for Badger State, and he asked me how far I'd travel. I think this was at Freeport. He asked me how far I would travel, because I think at that time I probably did Pecatonica and Milledgeville. The late Earl Lindeman asked me if I'd do Milledgeville, and I was honored to get in down there for the Carroll County Fair. And I said, oh, I can travel a little bit. And so then I started doing a little more of the Badger State stuff. And it just kind of took off from there. It really wasn't a plan by any means. And I just, as an announcer, I listened to the other announcers over the years. And, but back then, the announcer wasn't part of the program with Badger State. That was usually left up to the promoter, and they'd get the local auctioneer or seed salesman in or somebody, and he knew the local flair, and he knew how to pronounce most of the local pullers and everything, but he didn't, he's well spoken, and but he didn't know tractor pulling. And that's kind of where I was sitting there. I was like, man, he's not telling the story. How did this guy do last week, and what's he actually running and everything. And that's kind of where I kind of got my go at, was to tell the story. And then, being a tractor pull fan, first and foremost, it always kind of drove me nuts when I'd go to a pull and, did they reweight the sled? I don't know. They didn't tell me. Who's in the lead? Well, was it the guy that pulled first, or did they reweight the sled? And, they didn't keep me informed as much as I wanted to be informed. And so I kind of took that to the microphone when I started announcing, and it just kind of carried over from there. And another thing, back when I was a fan, this was before the internet. Now, Kristopher, you might find that hard to believe, but this was before the internet, and we only got our information, through the Puller magazine, which I got a stack of. I got years and years of them, and that's how you got your information. And as far as any polls coming up, they were in the Puller magazine, or you seen them in local print. And when I seen a tractor pull advertised that started at 7:00, I'd get off work and I'd beat feet to be there in the stands by 7:00 for that pull. And I'd get there and they'd still be working the track, and they'd still be messing around, and the pull wouldn't start till 7:30. And I always thought to myself, if I made the effort to get there for the start of that pull by 7:00, why can't these guys start this pull at 7:00? And that was also something, kind of a pet peeve of mine when I started announcing. I was like, you know what, we're going to start these polls on time. And I remember, I don't know which poll it was, but I looked at my watch at the time, and poll's supposed to start in 15 minutes, and they're still messing around with the track. And Dirk, he was working the track back then. I said, Dirk, let's get this track put together. We start in 15 minutes. And he kind of looked at me like, what the heck? Who are you? And but then we started getting the poll started on time. And then, the Badger State pullers, they've really done a tremendous job of that over the years. The quality of their shows are second to none. We still go pulling our mini rods down south, and once you get south of Interstate 80, time moves a lot slower, And the Badger State guys, they really run a tight ship. Dirk and Jim and the whole crew up there, they run a good event, and that's what makes it enjoyable for me as an announcer, is announcing a good pull. And so it's, for me, it's, I look at this, and this is 30 years I've been doing this now. I'd never dreamed I'd be doing this 30 years later. But here we are doing it. And it's been quite a ride. It's been a lot of fun, made a lot of friends doing it. And it's really filled a good void in my life, something to do on the side besides pulling my mini modifieds. But that's kind of how I got my start, John, is Stevenson County Fair. And that's where it all began. And here it is nowadays. So I'll shut up for a little bit and see what Kristopher's got to say.
Oh, you did good. That's the history we're looking for when things started. And I think you were a fan. I think you still are a fan, and that bleeds over into your announcing. I mean, you are there, and I am too. When I announce, I'm the number one fan, and at the end of the night, if somebody else became a Badger State fan, then I did my job. So, I try and, rally everybody in. And I know all of us do. We all have good passion for truck and tractor pulling and to call a good show. Kristopher, how'd you get started? And how long ago have you've been announcing kind of all over the place? A couple summers there, I think you were announcing in 3 or 4 different states and 6 organizations.
Yeah, it's been a fun time, and for me, it's like I've only been announcing for a few years, but I'm going into my, I guess, 10th season. I would say I started in the fall of 2012, and I guess I've been a fan of pulling probably since 2004, 2002, sometime in that time. And that's kind of when the internet really started to come on, I guess, in my era. So my era, I started following in junior high school on looking up what the websites were posted, trying to find all the information I could on the internet, and Facebook was just, starting at that time. And so then I kind of got my start announcing on accident, essentially, or just asking for help, which is, I'm a big promoter of people that are interested in pulling and like pulling as a fan and want to be involved and do something with pulling. All it really takes is to ask somebody, or to ask somebody at the puller, ask a person involved in a club anywhere in the country, because you never know when that little opportunity might be there. So the one that got my start announcing is the now NTPA Grand National Super Farm champion Gary Shavink from Reedsburg. Back when he was running PI Motorsports and had the pulling sled, I was at my hometown pull in Hillsboro, Wisconsin on Labor Day weekend in the fall. And I went up to Gary. I asked around, and I'm like, who's in charge here? I want to help. This is my hometown pull. I was in college at that time and old enough I wanted to get involved and do something. He's like, well, my announcer just called me and he ain't coming. And I sure ain't going to announce this thing. So here's the mic. Go up there and talk about whatever you want. He said, I don't really care what you do as long as I ain't doing it. And I said, oh, that's fine. I'll go up there and do it. It's like I kind of grew up wanting to be a sports broadcaster type almost. I had those kind of thoughts growing up that I thought that would be cool to do. And so I went up there, announced. It was an afternoon and a night show. So I did the afternoon, then I kind of gathered my thoughts. I got all the nervousness out, and then I did the night show, and I had a lot of fun at night. And then at the end of the poll, he walked up and said, boy, you did a great job. Here's a couple $100. And I said, well, what's this for? He's like, well, the announcers get paid, so here, have a little money. And everybody thought that was great. And I thought, wow, I just had fun all day long, and I get a little bit of money for this. I said, boy, you can't beat this. This is awesome. And he said, oh yeah. And if you want to come announce next summer for us, you're more than welcome. And I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, whatever. I don't really know what this is, but I'll do it. So from then in that fall of 2012, that was Labor Day weekend. Then I'm like, boy, I want to do this again before winter comes. So I started calling around all the polls that were left in my area in Wisconsin that fall yet to see if I could just go and get on the mic for a class or for a little bit. And then that's how I got hooked up with Jason Schultz and kind of met him and talked to him about his event that was in October. And I told him I wanted to come down and help and announce. And he said, yep, that's great. Good. Do that. And so I did that with him. And then next summer, I announced with PI Motorsports for most of their events for the summer of 13, and kind of really got my feet wet and traveled around the state and had a lot of fun with that. And then I think it was in 2014, I did a Badger State event, and I think my really first announcing job, and I kind of blame Jason Schultz and give him credit because he forgot to come to a poll in Sauk City in 2015. He double booked himself, and I remember I think Kelly called him or something, and she was just up in arms about it. It was like 10 minutes before the poll was going to start. I was over on the pit side for whatever reason on the trailer and kind of heard it, and then I heard Greg Elsing was going to announce that one. Then I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, you want me to announce this one for you? I'm here. I'll do it." And he said, and same thing. Yeah, as long as I don't have to do it, he said, I'll do it. But if you want to do it, go right ahead. So, and then after that, it kind of got my start there. And then in 2015, I got on the Badger State staff schedule for the first time, picked up 4 events. So kind of after that started, then Jason Schultz and Kelly, I think, kind of said, "Hey, why don't you do some of Jason's events that he has that he's busy with and just can't make it." And then I kind of got my real establishment or welcome into the Badger State schedule. I think I always call it the time I got to start announcing in Darlington, which I think was 2015 or 16. It might have been 16. And Jason Schultz was their announcer for there that, they had picked him and they wanted him every time. And he passed that event on to me. And that's been kind of my staple event from the start that I've always done. And that one is just, I feel like a rock star. Everybody there feels like a rock star at that event. It's just such a cool event to be part of. And that was one that kind of solidified my Badger State announcing schedule. And then it just kind of grew, and my announcing kind of just took off from there. Went from 2015 to barely being on the schedule to 2018 and 19. I had 10 announcing jobs with Badger State booked on the schedule. And us three kind of started splitting up the calendar in kind of equal parts almost there ever since maybe 2017, 2018, and 19, which seems like a while ago, but not all that long ago, I guess. And then my announcing kind of kept going over the years, where I announced in Wisconsin, Badger State, PI Motorsports, NEW Motorsports, Badger Truck Pullers, and Tri-County Pullers. Did a little bit for event for them, or part of theirs. And I did a Tri-State Pullers, announced for ECI, East Central Iowa Pullers. And then most recently, the last couple of years, I'm one of the announcers at the NTPA Grand National event in Rockwell, Iowa, one of the 3 announcers for that. So that's a big one that I'm proud to do and have a lot of fun doing as well. And then some of my other announcing gigs that I've got into kind of over the years that I have a lot of fun at and really proud to be a part of. One is the Ultimate Call Out Challenge in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the Lucas Oil Raceway, which is it's an invitation diesel truck event that has trucks from the U.S. and Canada. It's like a North American diesel truck challenge that's 3 days long, and get to be on the announcing team for that, which is a whole lot of fun. And then one of the other cool highlights is a couple years ago, I got a chance to go out to Colorado to announce at the first annual Rocky Mountain Nationals outside of Denver, Colorado. So that was a whole lot of fun. One fun time of announcing, I drove out to Lee, Nebraska to announce with Chris with the Nebraska Bush Pullers. Left in the morning, really early in the morning, drove out to Lee, announced the show, left there at about 11 at night, and drove all the way back to Wisconsin. Stopped at a casino at about 3:30 in the morning to kind of wake yourself up, and drove all the way out there and all the way back nonstop. So that was another club. So I think I all together announced in a handful of different states and with a lot of great people, and made a lot of great friends along the way, and really proud to do it with the Badger State Tractor Pullers. They've always, had the soft spot in my heart for announcing, and a lot of it's because of the other two on here with John and Stacy. Growing up listening to them from, my junior high years all the way through to getting to announce with them has been quite a dream come true, really, in a lot of aspects, and it's given me a chance to meet a lot of great people and have a lot of fun at a lot of different events and connect with a lot of different fans and do a lot of great, other things in pulling like you guys have done. A lot of people don't realize or know, and I kind of don't do as much with the Beer Money pulling team, but me and Jason and Brian Myers were kind of the three that really started the page, and I started that page with them in 2012 and 13. And back when it started, I did most all the posting on it, which I spent usually about 4 hours a day, 2 to 4 hours a day, and tried to post something every 5 minutes of all 24 hours of the day. At one point was our strategy, and spent a lot of time getting that started. And it was, when we hit 1 million reach on a post, we were just beyond ourselves. And when we hit 100,000 likes on the page and stuff, and 50,000 likes, we just couldn't believe it. And now it's, where it's grown now is unbelievable. So I'm kind of proud to be one of the original moderators of that page and see that success, and just kind of help out where I can in pulling. And pulling spilled over in my my fun time and my professional life too, with my time I was working at Fair Valley Performance, and had a lot of great a great time there, and a lot of fun and being involved in pulling as much as I can. John, what about you?
Well, that's great. Hey, that one you do in Indy, is that drag racing or is that truck pulling or what is it?
Yep. So it's a triathlon event. So the same truck has to drag race the one day, they go on a chassis dyno the next day, and then they sled pull the third day, all with the same truck. So it's a 3-event competition, and then they add up the points. And it's it's a good event where they give away, the winner can take home like around $40,000 to win. Wow. And the vehicles there are, they're $250,000, they're $300,000 to $400,000 trucks, no lie, on those that they put together. They're all custom done. It's all that whole competition is about pushing things to the max and to the limits and moving the diesel truck industry. And the drag racing is a big part of it. They're 4-wheel drive diesel trucks that go 120, 130, 140 miles an hour in the quarter mile. It's in 4-wheel drive. It's a lot of fun. So that's where, announcing's allowed me to see and take in a lot of cool things like that. And just, proud to be part of that.
That's awesome. We lost Stacy. I don't know if he didn't pay his phone bill or what happened.
Yeah, I think
hotspot got cold. He was talking about technology there right away off the get-go.
Yeah, I think so. I think he dropped off, but if he comes back in, I think Jason's watching. He'll have to add him back in.
I hope he does. Because I'm sure there's a lot of content yet to tap into with him. So for you fans here tonight, we had Stacy Button on, Kristopher Clark, and myself. And like we were talking, the Super Bowl is this last weekend, and Super Bowl pulling's this week. And what would a show be without the announcers? And I couldn't imagine watching a football game without having the play-by-play announcers, or going down Louisville, or even NASCAR or whatever else. It's the name, the face, and the people that are, like Stacy said, giving the information. For me, it kind of started years ago when I was a kid, I started tractor pulling with my dad, and I just turned 47. And I was about 5 years old when I started, so that's how long I've been around tractor pulling. And I started pulling with South Central Garden Tractor Pullers when I was a kid, which eventually turned into Rock County Pullers. And I was at the meeting when that transpired and organized years ago. But there was a guy that announced garden tractor pulls that was just, he had a great voice. He was super nice. And as a kid, he made me feel like, I was a star. He was just an awesome guy. He passed away a few years ago. His name was Stan Miller. And Stan was the type of guy, I don't think anybody I've ever met in the world didn't like him. He was just one of them guys. And he had a voice, and he could announce, and he knew what was going on. And like Stacy said, the distance, who's in the lead. He talked about the pullers. He gave all the stats. It was just cool. And I always loved listening to him and loved watching him and talking to him. And then I started announcing some as I started getting older, where he kind of started fading out a little bit, and he was kind of handing it over to me a little bit, and he kind of retired, and I announced then with the garden tractors and helped out, and then with Rock County Pullers, and then started pulling mini rods when I was 16 with my dad and with Stacy and them guys, and that's how I got to know Stacy. And before that, I knew I was good friends with JR Vinci, and JR pulled garden tractors with us, and then started pulling mini rods. And then when we were pulling garden tractors, even in the days that we weren't pulling, I'd go with JR and help at Tri-County. So I was hearing Stacy and Perry calling the shows, too, which, boy, they did a great job. And so then things transpired where we started passing the mic off there when I was pulling there and announcing there, too. And then I don't remember what year it was, but I know Stacy's daughter had some medical stuff going on, and him and his wife, Nancy, at the time, had to take her up to Mayo Clinic. And he called me up and said, "Hey, buddy," he says, I got a whole mitt full of announcing to do here, and I can't I got to take my daughter up there, and, it's very important, but, Badger State's very important. I think you do a good job at it. I'd like you to fill in for me and help us out. And so I did, and ever since then, I've been doing it every year, kind of like how you fell into it. And there's so many polls, and they've grown so much. I can't even tell you exactly what year that was. Stacy would be the one to tell me what year they went to Mayo, I guess, with their daughter. And that would be the year that I started with Badger State, and kind of been there since as they were growing. Both of us pulling tractors, mini rods, and that. It's been too much for Stacy. So then him and I were splitting it up, and then Jason come along, and he was helping out. And then you come along, and you've been a great addition too. And all the pulls that we have, and 3 different voices to go around. And sometimes, a lot of fans know we pull in 2 places in one night, so I can't be in 2 places, and neither can you guys. So works out well that we can do that and move it around and keep it going. And I think, like I said earlier, I've been a huge fan of truck and tractor pulling for years. And if I do my job at night at a Badger State show and people leave there, they had just as much fun as I did, then I did my job. And there's nights, this too, Kristopher, there's nights of pulls where people are kind of tired. They worked hard all week, and they're just here to enjoy the show, and they're not really into it as much. And then you go to Darlington, and that place is screaming from one end to the other. Beaver Dam is another one. Mazo, a lot of these pulls that, they do get that wound up. And that really makes my night. I think I have more fun then when we get them right here, right where we want them, front and center.
Yeah.
And they're involved. And that keeps the pullers going too.
Yeah, and I think that's plays into kind of what me and you two, it's for us, it's like some of our goal is for the fans is we want them to feel something when we're up there announcing, or when they leave, or when they're sitting at the pole. If the fan can feel something, either either the excitement of the tractor, a little bit of technical knowledge about the tractor, a little excitement about the sled being set whichever way, or just the emotion of the driver. If we can convey any kind of feeling to anyone in the crowd at any time, that's just, part of the success of our part of the involvement of the event. And I think that's where I get a lot of my enjoyment and my drive and passion for announcing, is just having that crowd feel something. And at times they feel something enough to reciprocate it back to the puller or you or anybody, and sometimes they don't, but just having that feeling, it's there. That's, makes a lot of events really special.
Yes, and I feel the same way. That they left with something, and like Stacy says, giving them information, and I like to do that too. And I think this is what the great part about this Down and Dirty show, since we started this, is that we're uncovering, the people that are underneath the helmet and the fire suits and the roll cage in the shops working and putting these things together, the trucks and the tractors, and to get to see behind the scenes. And so far, everybody's been very warm welcoming us, and we hope we get more. And back, I've always kind of been a gearhead, a wrench. I've been pretty fortunate. I feel I do a pretty good job wrenching. We get machining done, and we put stuff together and learn along the ways, and then building tractors, garden tractors, the mini rods, and then helping the Wildmans out. I helped them out a long time when I lived in Edgerton, and before I was married, I think I put 40 hours a weekend down there helping Craig build tractors, and working 40 plus hours a week at times, and I had a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun working side by side with them guys and helping them with their pulling tractors, and I learned a lot down there. I learned a lot fabricating, learned a lot of different chassis stuff, and getting to see the top-notch Engler chassis come through, and the new technology with some of that stuff going on. And it was kind of funny to hear people talk later on down the road about this new thing and that new thing, and I'd kind of keep quiet and kind of chuckle that this has been around for a couple of years and nobody's known it yet. Engler's had this, and it's just been cool because that stuff has transpired into the mini rods and in our mini rod, and a lot of the neat things that Engler's done with the big chassis and the pro stocks and stuff. I've kind of done the same stuff to mine, so it's helped us be successful. And I think behind the scenes of putting motors together and being around, and has gave me a extra sense of being underneath the hood, that when something happens to a truck or a tractor, I can pick it out, and I'm pretty close. I'm not always on the ball, but I'm not far away. If there's time off, just by hearing it and not being down there, it's a pretty good guess of what it is. And
and that's where, with my background too, I touch on that, where I don't have necessarily all those, mechanical experiences necessarily like that, but growing up listening to you and Stacy call out those things over the years always kind of stuck with me, and I've always had that interest of what happened or what's going on, or just really in depth with it. And that's kind of helped me pick up on that. And then kind of, and why I enjoy the chances I get to work with you and Stacy is on my end of it, I don't have as much as that technical, but from my spot as always being in the stands, I always liked when the announcers would do certain tactics or do certain things to inform the fans or give me some excitement in certain ways. So I kind of looked for the announcer to do certain things over the years watching it. And when they didn't, I was like, well, you should have said this at that time, or you should have thought of that. And that's where then me as an announcer, I'm constantly thinking of ways to, how can I connect to that fan I was years ago, or what can I say, or what can I do that's going to give that experience to the fan as the pullers. And then when we get the chance to work back and forth with you or Charles Posh, that's really, technical as well. That's when it becomes a lot of fun announce back and forth with someone that's really, really technical and good at articulating it to the fans, and then me, working with either an individual in the crowd or something like that just makes it a lot of fun for me. I know that.
Stacy just tried calling me here. Kind of knocked my internet out for a second there. I think you must be having trouble getting back on. If you're listening, Stacy, give Jason a call, and he should be able to get you back in the show here. So if you're still listening, Stacy, give Jason a call. He should be able to get you back in the show. If you log back in like we did earlier, it should bring you into like backstage, and he should be able to bring you in. So maybe give him a call. If I answer my phone, it'll kick me right off of here, and I'm doing it through my phone. So hopefully he gets back on. But that's the cool part. Like you said, the fan, and as a driver, someone that's been driving since I was a kid, I watch everything unfold. And like truck and tractor pulling is like stock car racing. There is an art to it. There's a science to it, and there's a method to it, I guess you could say. And as I'm announcing, I'm watching what drivers are doing, where they're picking the spot on the track on the starting line, and what they're kind of looking for on the finish and where they're aiming for. And I kind of pick things apart and see what they're doing at times where someone will line up all the way on the right side of the track. And when they back in, they're angled, their nose is angled to the left, and kind of gives me the idea they're going to either shoot for center or left to center, or some of them may even go all the way to the left, try and get a new spot. And as I announced too, some of the pullers, I don't know if they notice or not, I'll kind of throw out there, if I was driving and I was in this class, I think I'd move the sled all the way over to the right and then do this. That's where I think is a good spot, and I would run. And there's a few of them now that have picked up on that and have said that afterwards. And the whole thing of it is we get to see, everybody pull. We get to see the ones before them, the classes before them, where as a driver, you're weighing in, you don't get to see all of the class before you. Or if you're getting buckled up and you're early in the class, you don't get to, get enough of that visual of the track. So by doing that, it's kind of a, underlying announcing where I'm announcing the show, but I'm still kind of throwing those things out there as a driver where some of them pick up on them and some don't. But
that's where I kind of think of that same thing. Is I know there's people in the stands and the fans that do that, and I kind of done that. As I pay attention and just analyze every single thing that happens at a pull. And when I go to one, I'm so excited to be there and just so into it that I watch every single thing that the tractor does, the sled does, the roller, the packer, just everything that's going on. I'm just there to soak it all in because I just enjoy being there. And then that, all that just comes out of my mouth without me even thinking about it a lot of times. And the same with you is just like you just see all that and you just want to say it. It just comes out naturally. You don't, a lot of times when I announce, I don't know about you, John, is that I don't, if you ask me what I said, like 80% of what I say, I don't think I could remember or repeat it. A lot of times it's just in that moment where I'm catching all these things in the moment and I just am thinking of these things on the go, and it just comes naturally that I can't remember a lot of it after the poll. And I don't know, a question I had for you, because I know for me, I found that when I announce a poll, I don't know who any of the winners are when the poll is over. I've tried to remember things, and it's just the thing that it's just one of those weird things for me is when the poll's over, I don't know who's in the top 3 of any class. And when I was working for Don Sama, a lot of times I knew he would ask me the next day is who won in this. So I always looked on my phone at the results before I'd talk to him, because I know he'd ask, and I would never, I never remember who'd won. It's just one of those weird things. And I'm curious on you, if you remember, yourself at the end of a poll, can you remember everything you did and said and happened?
Close. I usually, because Stacy will ask me, a lot of times we chat back and forth who won and whatnot and what unfolded and, who blew up and what happened. And so most of the time I remember probably 75% of it, but there is a lot that goes on as an announcer with sponsors and talking about the pullers and about the pull, and the sponsors there at the pull, and to try and cover everything and do due diligence to all of it is tough. I mean, it's you really got to be involved, into it. And
Yeah.
announcing wise, I don't know about you, Kristopher, but one of the things that I've always done announcing is you have that window when the puller's done to the time the next puller comes up, where they're grooming the track, getting things ready, the sled backs back up, and the other puller comes out. Is try and get a few sponsors in or talk about the run. But then I know when the driver comes out, the next driver, I want to talk about them, and I know where I'm going to start and I know where I'm going to end.
Yep.
It's just jumping that gap and getting that gap jumped so that I'm done talking when they're ready to go. When they're ready to go, I want to be silent and let the fans hear that truck or hear that tractor. Where you go to like a stock car race and they're talking all the time, but you can't hear them half the time because it's so loud, with the stock cars. And it's like pulling. Just I always feel like as a fan, I want to hear what's going on so I can catch that too. So I try and do that, and I always try and keep the top three and keep it going.
There's Stacy.
Hey, I'm back.
Good.
Did you forget to pay the phone bill?
Oh, my stupid phone overheated.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I had it leaned up against my laptop, and evidently my screen on my laptop is putting out too much heat. Next thing you know, my phone shut down because it was too hot. What the heck? But I got back on right away, but I couldn't get back in until Jason got me on. And thanks, John, for giving me the heads up. I called him, got his voicemail, and then sent him a text, so he got me back on. But yeah, I've been sitting backstage for the last half an hour listening to you guys. So I haven't missed too much. Right?
Good. Yeah, we were just talking about that internal time clock when announcing, and and I'll make a mention of that. And I'm curious to see what you would have to say, Stacy, of the years of experience. But and to John's point, there is that time. It's a countdown, and there's a checklist in our minds that happen when after you read the distance from till the next puller's coming up. There's a checklist, at least for me, that I have kind of this idea. After this puller, I'm going to do this. After in 3 pullers, I want to read the sponsor checklist here. There's this countdown, and then there's a time clock, and that's why announcing is different than a lot of motorsports where when the green flag is live, I mean, it's not our time anymore. It's the puller's time, and it that time clock kicks down, and sometimes we miss it, and I really get upset with myself when I misjudge the timing of when that tractor is going to go, and I overspill a little bit. Or if you get an interruption that's kind of an unforeseen thing, or somebody comes up to talk to you, you really want to talk to them because it's your good friend and whatnot, and you haven't seen them, and you want to say hi to them after you just kind of started that countdown and that timeline in your head, and they kind of come in and mess it up. That's what kind of makes the announcing fun, and it can kind of throw you for a loop or give you that headache. But I wanted to, Stacy, over the time, have you you kind of have that countdown in those, and how do you kind of manage when you get interrupted then when you're up at the announcer's stand?
Well, I thanks, Kristopher. I don't really have a time clock or anything. I don't rehearse a darn thing. Go ahead and I'll get to the polls early and talk to the pullers and find out what's what. But back in the old days, that's what you had to do, was get to the polls early and talk to the pullers. But you got the internet now, and you can glean so much information there. But as far as the event itself, I, like John, when that puller's coming up, that's the only one I talk about. I don't talk about the one who's going to come up in the next class or 3 tractors from now or whatnot. When that next puller is getting ready, that's his time. And I try to give all the information that I've got about that particular puller, where he's been, what he's done, what he's blown up, and because a lot of these times, these pullers, and I know this from my own experience, you were wrenching on that thing till 2:00 in the morning the night before, and you put the sheet metal on it in the trailer on the way to the pull. A lot of that happens, and people like to hear that story, what these guys have gone through to get to this event here today. And but as far as the the flow of the pull itself, I like what you said, Kristopher, how you don't remember any of it. And I don't, I kind of remember bits and pieces of it, but I don't rehearse anything. And I just say whatever comes to my mind. Sometimes that's not so good. I learned a very humble lesson back early in my announcing career. And this happened at the Stevenson County Fair. We had a tractor out on the track that had broke, and we needed to get a tow-off tractor. And they come out with this little Kubota tractor. And we all know Kubotas are fine pieces of equipment. Their side-by-sides are favored by pullers, for pit vehicles. But the little Kubota they brought out, it was just too small of a tractor to tow the tractor out of the holes. And they snuffed it out a couple of times. And I made a comment about, we need to get a big American tractor out there, pull this tractor off the track. And I thought I was being funny. Well, I learned the next day when I came back for the second night of the pull that the Kubota representatives that were there, they didn't think I was funny at all. And they took me aside and said, we've done a lot to build this Kubota dealership up, and you just, made fun of our product out there in front of that grandstand full of people. And that's when I was humbled and realized that this just isn't backyard stuff anymore. You got to be a little bit politically correct. And I almost quit that time because being a young brash man, I didn't like taking criticism, but I took it and I learned my lesson. But that was an enlightening moment. And then after that, I've learned, you got to give all the sponsors their plug and their due, and do it with respect and courteous and professionalism. See, I never considered myself a professional, so I didn't think I had to. But that was an interesting time. That's But as far as the flow of the poll goes, that's also changed a lot too the last couple of years. Kristopher and John, we got the scoreboard now, and Ryan Zolik, he does such a great job with that scoreboard and the video board that it takes away, it takes some of the work off us as far as getting the distances up there and stuff. They're still good enough to allow us to give the distance before it goes on the scoreboard. So us announcers feel like we're doing something important yet. Mm-hmm. But working that scoreboard into your delivery of the poll, especially comes to mind Freeport last year. One of the alcohol supers, he split the oil pan, spewed all the oil out right at the end of his run. And Ryan Zolik was listening to me, and he's seen that, and he replayed that on the scoreboard several times as I described to the fans what had just transpired and what was going on out in the track. And that's really bringing the fans into the event as to what's going on. Because we had that luxury of having the scoreboard there now. And that's just a new tool that we've got that we are lucky enough to get to utilize. And we're fortunate enough that the Badger State pullers have made that investment in their shows to get that scoreboard video board out there for us to use. And, if we don't use it and point out to the fans, hey, here's what you want to see, just look at the scoreboard. And because Ryan listens to us and feeds off us, he'll replay what we want him to replay. And that's a big thing too. I mean, it's really changed a lot in 30 years I've been coming to these polls. That's for sure. Back when I started announcing polls, we didn't hardly have a laser. We still used a string and a tape measure at a lot of polls. So it's really come a long ways.
Yeah, that's what drives me a lot of times is that the interaction and the involvement and the experience of the poller and the fan is, if I can be a part of helping to deliver that enhanced experience that maybe wasn't there 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 5 years ago at a poll, and that's where, you guys have evolved, and I've even evolved over time too, is delivering a little different experiences. Every year there's something kind of new for us to learn about or get into, whether it's a different website or a live results or the video board. And that's what keeps announcing a lot of fun and intriguing too for us year after year as well.
Yeah. And something else, as a puller myself, I obviously I'm not pulling or announcing when I'm pulling, but you as a puller, when you get off the track, you always want to know how far did I go, what place am I in? And as a good announcer, the pullers, you're not only announcing for the spectators, you're announcing for the pullers too, because they're counting on you for information as to how their run was, where they stack up at right now, who's leading, top three. I try to give at least the leader or the top two out top three out as the class progresses as they go along, and keep everybody informed, because the pullers, they don't know, because they're, like John was saying, they're buttoned up in their fire suit and everything, and got their helmet on, and when they drive off the track, they still don't know. They got an idea if it was a good run, how far they are, but pulling so tight nowadays, you really don't know where you're at when you pull off the track. And so, we got to, I don't want to say pander, but cater to a lot of different avenues there. And our spectators, our fans that come to the polls, the ones that are watching this show right now, they know all there is to know about pulling. We're not going to tell them anything they don't know for the most part. But the casual fan that goes to one, maybe two polls a year, maybe they only go to their local county fair poll. That's it. And you got to explain to the casual fan or the first time fan what's going on out there. And I know some people are like, oh, guy's going to tell the story how a sled works again. I already know. But you know what? That guy sitting 2 rows in front of you might not know how a sled works. So we've got to explain that. We got to educate people, because believe it or not, pulling is still very much a niche sport. We know it and we love it, and we've been around it forever. But a lot of people have no idea what you're talking about when you tell them about a tractor pull. You have to explain it. And that's, I find that in just, day-to-day dealings with people, that we're still not mainstream, guys. We're still not.
Mm-hmm.
This change that's really helped us out, and you guys, this will hit home when I tell you, is, years ago, Stacy, and you were announcing with Tri-County, and I was announcing there too, and I started garden tractor pulling, announcing, and before that, and on up through is the people that give you the information, Kelly and Amy and Tracy and the girls sit next to us at Badger State that have the computer there. It's right on the money. It's right there all the time. When the class is over, it's sorted top to bottom, and we got that information right here, right now. And we get so used to it. When you go to another poll and call like a brush poll or something somewhere to help up, and you don't have that, or you're kind of lost a little bit. You're kind of scurrying to find that information. And Badger Trucks, they do the same thing. They got a computer, and it makes it really nice. And I've helped announce with them, and they're lined right up, got stuff about all the pullers there too. But that's made a difference over the years too. Helping the announcer, that's a big, big tool. And we got to have that person there, because there's no way that we could do both of them.
Yeah, we've been very spoiled, John and Kristopher, with Kelly and Amy and all the gals up there that feed us the information. I mean, we've got it pretty good. And Kristopher, you've announced with a number of organizations, and you can definitely appreciate the job that they do there. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's where there's, sometimes there's somebody helping and or not. And a lot of times I've been in a lot of polls or county fair polls over the years where, sometimes there's 8,000 pound or farm stock tractors, and the gal that's helping you is just somebody's helper that's there, and she's just helping, and she just writing the numbers, and then she gives you the clipboard and says, okay, here you go. And you're like, oh, all right, hold on, folks. Let me read you the top 10. Just give me 5 minutes and I got to get my calculator out and figure out who won this poll. I have no idea right now. And now I'm on the spot to figure this out in the next 30 seconds. I got to look at 20 distances. And that's happened a lot of times, and we kind of, announcers know when that's going to happen. So a lot of times we don't get caught a lot, but then the times we have that, the booth is full of a couple people or 3 people up there really sorting everything out, and having the special sponsors that are there, having all that laid out. It's just, we get so comfortable with that and doing that, and we can really deliver the message so effectively. When that happens, makes it a lot more fun too.
Yeah. Hey, John, I'm going to take this a little different route with you guys here. As announcers, we're only as good as our equipment, and we don't supply the equipment. And announcing for the Badger State and this part of the country, we're very fortunate that a lot of our fairs utilize Tower Sound for their sound systems, and that to me, that is a huge element for us to be able to convey our message to the fans, is having a decent sound system. Because there's nothing worse than going to a fair where they got their own sound system that hasn't been used since last year or checked out, mind you, and the speakers don't work, and you got people yelling at you, hey, I can't hear you, hey, I'm too loud, that's out of our hands, because that's not why we're there. And we're only as good as the sound system that we've got to yap our voice over. And I learned that early on too. Going to the Stevenson County Fair, I think they were called State Line Communications at the time when I first started announcing down there. And I was like, boy, I picked up the microphone. Man, this thing's pretty nice. I said, they even make me sound good. How about that? And, so that's something else that, as far as an announcer, that, we probably overlook it nowadays because it's, it's a pretty much a standard luxury for us. But boy, back in the day when you're yelling out a bullhorn with a couple of speakers, that's a big difference.
Yeah, and that's where any promoters listening or pollers that we've been to, it's like, yeah, thank you for, making that a priority for your event too, and not forgetting about that, because over the years there's been places that I'll go an hour ahead of time and go up and make sure the mic works at some places, and there's some places like Darlington I can get there 5 minutes before, walk up on the stage, grab the mic, and I'm rocking and rolling, no problem at all. So yeah, I appreciate those folks that make that effort to have that part of it checked off, because it's the thing that nobody thinks about that really. That's not an up in front thing. It's not a it's a thing that you just expect to be there, for me, and at times it's not, or when it's not, it's noticeable. So that's a good point.
Getting close here, guys. We only got a couple minutes left, but reflecting on this too is a few things that always seem to come to the top of the cream, I guess, with the shows that we've been doing, Greg and I. But family, friends, and pulling have all kind of wrapped together. You notice that through what each of you guys said to the people that you meet. And us three, like when we did the banquet this year, was a lot of fun, all three of us together. And throughout the summer, we're by ourselves at pulls, but when we get a chance to be with each other, and Stacy and I have kind of unfair advantage, Kristopher, because him and I have been, pulling together since I was a kid and long time. But we start sentences and the other one will finish it, and you've been gotten better at that too. You and I have gotten this last summer a few times here where you get to fall into that rut, and you finally feel comfortable announcing with somebody like that. And when you go somewhere else where it's different, it's hard to get that charisma together and get that point where, I don't want to overstep him. I don't want to talk over him or her, or, I want to do due diligence, but, keep my stuff a little shorter because there's two of us. So, but I think we all do a good job of that.
Yeah. And me and John, John, we've got a bit of a chemistry there, but we'll look at each other and we'll finish we'll hold our finger up and finish what we're saying, and then point to the other guy, and then he can get going with what he's got going. We very rarely talk over each other. And, something else, John, what I find really funny is the fact that we kind of, we've been announcing together for 20 years or whatever. And we both pull mini rods. And we both sound alike. I don't know what the odds of that are. Yep. I don't know what you did to deserve all that, but yep. I hear that a lot.
Yeah, I get that. I almost get that comment too of, I want to bring that up too, is that sometimes somebody will come up and say, boy, you kind of sound like John, or you kind of sound like Stacy tonight. And I'm like, well, when I listen to him all the time and a fan listens to him all the time, it's kind of hard not to sound like you guys sometimes.
It's fun though that when we've done it long enough though, that you're good at this, Stacy, too, is you'll start a sentence or start talking about something, and you'll go halfway down the road, and as soon as you get halfway down the road, you're going to stop, and you let me finish the drive, and then I do the same thing to you with something down the line later on down the road. I'll start driving, and then I'll hand the wheel over, and then that's where it can be a lot of fun where I already know where you're going to go with this once I get started. And Kristopher, you're good at that. When we were doing that at Monroe this year too, you got better at that, especially since the first time you helped at Hillsboro at the Lucas Oil Poll that first time.
Yep. Yeah. And so one other thing I point out as we're starting to wrap this up is I'm not sure why we didn't make this a 3-hour show when we got the announcers on here. I'm pretty sure the expectation was probably to go over time a little bit. But one thing I was going to ask you guys, and I can fill in my part at the end, is what for you guys over the years and now makes it special to be involved in Badger State Tractor Pullers. I mean, this is the Down and Dirty show, and what for you guys makes you like proud to be part of the organization, I guess.
I'll run with that first. For me, I've watched the Badger State Tractor Pullers grow into the organization that they are now. I showed you guys the schedule from 2001, and a lot of the polls are still on there. But back in 2001, we were polling twice at an event, and I remember the Carroll County Fair in Milledgeville down there one year. That was when we pulled everything twice. The pro stocks pulled 10 and 12,000. The super farms weighed, I don't know, 93 and 10.3 or something like that. But we pulled everything twice, and it was a quarter after 10. And back then also it was the 300-foot track, mind you, and we ran pull-offs. And it was the quarter after 10, and we just finished the pro stock class. And I said, guess what, folks? We're halfway done. and I'm an hour and a half from home, and I had to work the next day too. And to see the Badger State grow and back then that was when we were starting to get, 18 super farms at every pull. And, the club was growing tremendously, leaps and bounds. And the shows were really getting tight, as far as being ran very well. And, we've been blessed with good sleds putting on our shows over the years. And, I feel like I've grown with the Badger State Pullers in the last 30 years. And to see where they're at now, one of the premier organizations. And I think, John, you said they got 15 pullers going to Louisville here this week. Myself and my brother, we're heading down there to Louisville. We're leaving Wednesday morning. We're going to catch Wednesdays and Thursdays pulls and cheer our faithful on down there. But I'm just proud to be a part of it. The banquet, we had 484 people at the banquet this year. I go to 3 pulling banquets a year, and the other ones combined don't have that many people at their banquets. It's just a tremendous family and camaraderie and a great organization that I'm very proud to be a part of. That's for sure. That's what I got.
I can't. You hit everything on the head, and I think I've grown too. But the family atmosphere there, there's a lot going on with my family here at home, and I'm always getting text messages from Badger State Tractor Pullers and people from the organization, and positive messages and vibes from them, or checking in with me, see how we're doing. And you can't put a price tag on that. It just, goes right to the heart. And the things that they've done for my family, and pullers behind the scenes have done for my family. And if I started naming them off, I'd be here a long time, but I thank each and every one of them. And as far as I'm concerned, they are one of my family. They want to come sit at my table and drink coffee and talk about things, more than welcome to anytime. And that's the best part about being with the Badger State Tractor Pullers. That is the best. And it's just, I think, as an announcer, I'm the number one fan, and I hope, everybody else kind of jumps on the back and let's roll. And I hope we do due diligence when I'm announcing to do that.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into my part of it too, is when I was, younger and just getting into this and going, is that all the staff and the pullers are just so nice to me. That's where I'm like, I've watched that guy or knew about him for years, and he's said hi to me, or he asked me the question or whatever, and I got to talk to him a little bit, and they're just so welcoming and nice. And the staff, when I first got going and stuff, and then still today, is the people and the wives and the pullers and everybody that I maybe see 3, 4, 5 times a year, but when I do, they're just so nice and welcoming, and it's just a family event when you go, which is special to me, and very, very thankful on my part for that. And the other part, I just really proud to be part of the club that does what they do for the American Family Children's Hospital. It's one thing I should mention with that is that it's unbelievable what the support out there, and the number of people which is a lot of people that are involved, but in the grand scheme of things, not really a lot of people involved in raising the kinds of money that the club does in 1 year to donate. And when you're looking at trying to do 100,000 plus every year to donate, it's just unbelievable, and really proud to be a part of that and see the stories of that, because the Children's Hospital in Madison gets a lot of help from a lot of different people, but having the Badger State Tractor Pullers being one that really cares and really does a lot and has connections to it. For me, when I talk to people that don't know tractor pulling or don't know the Badger State Tractor Pullers, I find myself just bringing that up, or being, hey, this is a pulling club, and they do all this, and hey, the Children's Hospital, they're involved in that, and they donate stuff for the kids, and of course the monetary stuff and all that. But the involvement there is just special to be a part of that, and the pro stocks are okay too, I guess. I mean, having one of the best pro stock classes at a state organization is just mind blowing as well. And then all the pullers and the growth of that, and what it means to be a puller in the club. Everybody feels that, and what it means to be on the staff list, and then what it means to be a fan of the club is just something that when you think about it, you kind of realize it and get goosebumps about it. But it's not something you maybe think about all the time, but when you do, it's a pretty special deal.
I think you just made 1,000 people go pro stocks. Okay, really?
Yeah. Kristopher touched on something that I was going to make note of. Us as announcers for Badger State, but also just the fans of Badger State, we are so fortunate because all of our competitors, they could all go run a national circuit and win national championships if they decide to. It's been proven in the Super Farm class where them guys do go out and chase the tour. And we brought home, 10 championships on the PPL circuit there over the years. But like our pro stock class, that any one of them guys can go win a Grand National Pull anytime or win a championship. We're just lucky that they choose to stay around close to home and provide us something to talk about on a weekly basis, because they are top-notch competitors. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and then and their excitement to pull at the Badger State Tractor Pullers, and you can tell that. I mean, they're every puller is proud to be part of the pull that night or whatever, and that I know that really drives us three to be the best announcers we can be and the best fans we can be. No doubt about that.
And the big thing of it is too is, as competitors and being a competitor, Stacy, you put the helmet on, boy, you mean business sitting in the seat there. And all the Badger State guys do too. But when they get done and they pull that helmet off, they go over to their fellow competitors, shake hands, give them a little bit of grief. I'll get you next weekend, and drink a beer together. And the other part of it is too, and you and I have seen this, and we've done this, you got a broken part, I got one in the trailer. Take it off my tractor and put it on yours, and you're not going to leave anybody out. That's the cool part about it.
Yep. Yeah. It's we're just fortunate to be around the group that we are and watch it grow over the years. Now, I've been around it long enough that I've seen a lot of pullers come and a lot of pullers go. And, some of the ones that have been there since I started at the beginning, Brick Myers, Dustin Hook, I remember watching Dustin pull T-Bone for the very first time up in Sauk, just some of the things I've seen over the years in my career of hanging around the Badger State pullers is quite amazing. The limited light super stock, when I started announcing, that was a naturally aspirated class, and they ran it at 5,000 and 7,000 pounds, and the same tractors didn't run to 5,000 and 7,000 pounds at all. They adapted the pulls from down south and went with the turbocharged stuff, and that allowed Hawthorns to start pulling close to home. And it's just, part of the evolution and the growth of the sport that I've been fortunate enough to enjoy over my long career of announcing with the Badger State Tractor Pullers.
And more and more now lately too is the second and third generations that able to see, like the Meyer boys. I remember when they're playing in the sand back behind me, and Kathy was with me, running the computer announcing, and one of the boys come up screaming, and when they left, I'm like, is everything okay? And she says, yeah, he just lost his sandal out there in the sand, so I told him go find it. And now here they're pulling Grandpa's tractor, and Brinkmeyer's Gary's grandson's driving, and you see Wildman's first and actually second, third generation is Jim Wildman pulled Kurt and Craig, and then Kurt's son Travis, and it's just that cool part to see. Well, guys, it's been a good night. We're running on overtime. The announcers sticking right to the shutdown time, but I think we better wrap this up as Jason's got the other show firing up and going. So, Kristopher, any last things you'd like to say here quick before we shut her down?
Well, I'm glad you had me on here this week and we got this able to put this together because, for me, this is the best week of the year. This is the most exciting week of the year, no doubt about it, as I'm going down to the National Farm Machinery Show. So tonight I got to be on the show, talk with a couple of my best friends here. Tomorrow night, I'm actually, believe it or not, going out for dinner for Valentine's Day and then leaving Wednesday to go to the farm show till Sunday. So I got a full week of fun. Let me tell you that.
Lucky guy.
Yeah.
How about you, Stacy?
Yeah, Kristopher, I'll see you in Louisville.
Yep.
It's funny.
Yep.
I'm doing Valentine's Day tomorrow night also, and then skating out of town Wednesday morning. I guess we do have our priorities straight a little bit, don't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be heading down to Louisville, and it's just nice to see you guys. I haven't seen you since the banquet, and talk pulling and talking about something that's very near and dear to us, the Badger State Tractor Pullers. And we got some pretty decent run of weather here for the middle of February. Get you pumped up. It won't be long. We'll be whistling them up outside for the American Family Children's Hospital. I think that's probably going to kick off our season again, I do believe, and I'm excited for it.
I am too. So I'd like to thank you guys for coming on, chatting with you yesterday, and coming on here tonight. This was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you're able to get back on, Stacy, and finish out the show with us. And to all the fans with Down and Dirty, Stacy Button and Kristopher Clark and myself on here, we can't thank you guys enough, and all the fans that have been watching Down and Dirty with Greg and Jason and I, and having these guys on. We'll get these guys on some more as we move along. We had Kristopher on with Fair Valley already, and so moving along, we'll get Stacy involved somewhere along the line too. But thanks, guys. Greatly appreciated. I hope everybody enjoys the show. Good luck to all the Badger State Tractor Pullers in Louisville. You two guys behave and have fun down there. I'll hold the fort down here at home, so I'll be thinking of you. I'm going to try and watch some of it live stream live down there to see how everybody's doing. And I hope everybody has a safe travels down and back. Thanks again, guys. And enjoy the evening. Enjoy the week.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Thanks, John, Stacy.
See you, Kristopher.
Have a good night.
what's on there from last year is pretty much the same. Vendors, there will be vendor row available.